Well, Dr. Jung, we have been discussing in some detail some of the factors in the development of the personality of the individual, and you have very kindly elaborated for us on some of your fundamental concepts, such as the archetype and at least simply what it means, and certain types of archetypes such as the anima and the animus. And we try to show, perhaps in our discussion, some of the ways that your ideas may have differed from those of Dr. Freud. Now, another concept or idea that seems to be a very interesting one in your work, at least as I see it, is the term or concept persona. And of course, this seems to have a lot of relevance to the daily living of the individual. I wonder if you would mind telling us a little bit about how you construe this term persona.
Well, this is a practical concept we need in elucidating people's relation. I noticed with my patients, particularly with people that are in public life, that they have a certain way of presenting themselves. For instance, take the doctor. He has a certain way. For instance, he has good bedside manners, and he behaves as one expects a doctor behaves. He may even identify himself with it and believe that he is what he appears to be.
Yes.
He must appear in a certain form, unless people don't believe that he is a doctor. And so when he's a professor, he's also supposed to behave in a certain way so that it is plausible that he is a professor, you know. So the persona is partially the result of the demands society has. And on the other side, it is a compromise with what one likes to be, or with what, or as one likes to appear. Say.
Yes.
Take, for instance, a parson. He also has his particular manner, and as corresponding to the general expectation, and he behaves also in another way, combined with his persona that is forced upon him by society in such a way that also his fiction of himself, his idea about himself, is more or less portrayed or represented. So the persona is a certain complicated system of behavior which is partially dictated by society and partially dictated by the expectations or the wishes one nurses oneself.
Yes.
Now, this is not the real personality, in spite of the fact that people will assure you that that is all quite real and quite honest, yet it is not.
Yes.
Now, such a performance, or say, yeah, the performance of the persona is quite all right, as long as you know that you are not identical with the way in which you appear.
Yes.
But if you are unconscious of this fact, then you get into sometimes very disagreeable conflicts. Namely, people can't help noticing that at home, for instance, you are quite different from what you appear to be in public.
Yes.
And people who don't know it stumble over it in the end. They deny that they are like that, but they are like that. They are it. And then you don't know, now, which is the real man?
Yes. Yes.
Is he the man as he is at home or in intimate relations, or is he the man that appears in public? It is a question of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
Often.
Yes.
It is such occasionally there is such a difference that you would almost be able to speak of the double personality.
Yes.
And the more that is pronounced, the more people are neurotic.
Yes.
They get neurotic because they have two different ways. They contradict themselves all the time, And in as much as they are unconscious of themselves, they don't know it. They think they're all one. Everybody sees that they are two.
Yes.
And some know him only from one side, so others know him only from the other side. And then there are situations that clash, because the way you are creates certain situations with people in your relations, and these two situations don't chime in, they are just dissonances.
Yes, yes.
And the more that is the case, the more the people are neurotic.
Yes. Actually, would you say that the individual may even have more than two personas? In other words, could he possibly...
Oh, rarely. You know,
rarely.
we can't afford it very well to play more than two roles. But there are cases, for instance, where people have up to 5 different personalities.
Yes.
In cases of dissociation of personality, where, for instance, the one person, say, call it person A, doesn't know of the existence of the person B, but B knows of A.
Yes.
Or there may be a third personality, C, that doesn't know of the two others.
Yes.
You see, there are such cases in literature.
Yes.
They
rare.
are rare.
Very
the
rare.
ordinary case is just an ordinary dissociation of a personality.
Yes.
One calls that a systematic dissociation,
yes.
in contradistinction to the chaotic or unsystematic dissociation you find in schizophrenia.
Yes. Now, you distinguish between the term persona and the term ego. In other words, as you see them, they're two different things.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
now,
yes.
what is the difference between the term ego, as you see it, and the term
well,
persona?
you see, the ego is supposed to be the representative of the real person. But as I say, for instance, in the case where B knows of A, but A doesn't know of B,
yes.
in that case, one would say the ego is more on the side of C.
Yes.
Because the ego has a more complete knowledge, and
yes.
A is a split-off personality.
Yes. Now, you also use the term self.
Yes.
Now, the word self, then, would this have a different meaning than, say, ego or
Oh, yes,
persona?
oh, quite, oh, yes. You see, when I say self, then you mustn't think of I, myself, because that is only your empirical self, and
yes.
that is covered by the term ego.
Ego, yes.
But when it is matter of the self, then it is matter of a personality that is more complete than the ego, because the ego is only consists of what you are conscious of.
Yes, yes. Your awareness.
Yeah, what you know to be yourself. Yes. For instance, in our example, B that knows A, and A doesn't know B, B is relatively in the position of the self.
Yes.
Namely, the self is on the one side the ego, on the other side the unconscious personality, which everybody is in the possession of everybody, not in the possession. Very often it is just the other way around, that the unconscious is in possession of consciousness.
Yes, yes.
But that is a different case. Now, you see, while I am talking, I am conscious of what I say,
yes.
I am conscious of myself, yet only to a certain extent. Quite a lot of things happen. For instance, I make gestures. I'm not conscious of them.
Yes.
They happen unconsciously. You can see them.
Yes.
I may say or use words, and I can't remember at all having used those words, or even at the moment I'm not conscious of them.
Yes.
So any amount of unconscious things occur in my conscious condition. I'm never wholly conscious of myself.
Yes.
While I'm trying, for instance, to elaborate an argument, at the same time, there are unconscious processes that continue, perhaps a dream which I had last night.
Yes.
Or a part of myself thinks of God knows what.
Yes.
Or of a trip I'm going to take, or of such and such people I have seen, or when I am at writing a paper, I'm continuing writing that paper in my mind without knowing it.
Yes.
You can discover these things, say, in dreams, or if you are clever in immediate observation of an individual, then you see in the gestures or in the expression in the face that there is what one calls une arrière-pensée,
yes.
something behind consciousness.
Yes.
So that you have finally the feeling, well, that man has something up his sleeve.
Yes.
And you can even ask him now, what are you really thinking of? You're thinking all the time something else, yet he's not conscious of it. Or he may be. There are, of course, great individual differences. There are individuals who have amazing knowledge of themselves, of the things that go on in themselves. But even those people wouldn't be capable of knowing what is going on in their unconscious.
Yes.
For instance, they are not conscious of the fact that while they live a conscious life, all the time a myth is played in the unconscious. A myth that extends over centuries.
Yes.
Namely, archetypal ideas, a stream of archetypal ideas that goes on through one individual, through the centuries.
Yes.
You see, it is like a continuous stream,
yes.
and that comes then to the daylight in the great movements.
Yes.
Say in political movements or in spiritual movements. For instance, in the time before Reformation, people dreamt of the great change, and that's the reason why such great transformations could be predicted.
Yes.
If somebody has been clever enough to see what is going on in people's mind, in the unconscious mind,
yes.
Would be able to predict it. For instance, I have predicted the Nazi rising in Germany through the observation of my German patients.
Yes.
They had dreams in which the whole thing was anticipated.
Yes.
And with considerable detail. And I was already absolutely certain in the years before Hitler came, in the beginning of the, well, I could say the year 1919, I was sure that something was threatening in Germany, something very big and very catastrophic. And I only knew it through the observation of the unconscious. You see, there is something very particular in the different nations. And this is a peculiar fact that the archetype of the anima plays a very great role in Western literature, French and Anglo-Saxon,
yes.
not in Germany.
Yes.
There are exceedingly few examples in German literature where the anima plays a role.
Yes.
You know, that simply comes from the fact that not one woman is buried unless she is buried as Alt-Kaminfegerskattin, at least.
Yes. Yes.
She must have a title, otherwise she hasn't existed.
That's right. That's right.
And so you see, it is just as if, now mind you, this is a bit drastic, but it illustrates my point. In Germany, there are no women. There is Frau Doktor, Frau Professor, Frau Kommerzienrat, the grandmother, the mother-in-law, the grandfather, father, the son, the daughter, the sister. No woman.
Yes. Yes, I see.
La femme,
La femme.
ça n'existe pas.
Doesn't exist. Well,
it is the idea, you see. Now that is an enormous, enormously important fact, which shows that in the German mind there is going on a particular myth, something very particular.
Yeah.
And psychologists really should look out for these things.
Yeah.
But they prefer to think that I am a prophet.
Yes.
Ha!
Now, just in the same context of journey, this is, of course, a very interesting and remarkable set of statements here. How would you look at Hitler in this light? Would you see him as a personification, a symbol of the Father?
Oh, well, no.
No.
Not at all.
I know.
No, you see, I couldn't possibly explain that very complicated fact Hitler represents. It is too complicated, you know. He is a hero figure.
Yes.
And the hero figure is far more important than any fathers that have ever existed.
I see. Much broader than
No, he
the
was
immediate
not a father
father
at all. Not at all. He was a hero
Yes.
in the German myth.
Yes.
And, mind you, a religious hero. He was a savior.
Yes. Yes.
He was meant to be a savior. That is why they put his photo upon the altars,
Yes.
even.
Yes.
Or somebody declared this too, so that he is happy that his eyes have beheld Hitler,
Yes.
and now he can die in peace. Oh, it's just the hero myth, you know.
Yes. Now, getting back to the idea of the self, and the self incorporates these unconscious factors. The self incorporates these unconscious
The self
factors.
is merely a term that designates the whole personality, because
personality.
the whole personality of man is indescribable.
Yes.
His consciousness can be described. His unconscious cannot
Not
be described, because the unconscious, as I must repeat myself,
Yes.
is always unconscious.
Yes.
And it is really unconscious, but really does not know it.
Does not know about it.
And so we don't know our unconscious personality. We have hints, we have certain ideas, but we don't know it really. Nobody can say where man ends.
Yes.
That is the beauty of it, you know.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yes.
The unconscious of man can reach God knows where. There we are going to make discoveries.
Yes. Yes. Now, another set of ideas, which of course are very, very well known to the world, that of course you have originated, center around the terms introversion and extroversion.
Yeah.
And I know that you're aware of the fact that these terms have now become so widely known that the man on the street is using these terms constantly in describing his wife or his friends and so on and so forth. It's become probably the most used psychological concepts by the layman that we have.
Oh, like the word complex. I have invented it too.
Yes,
Also
that's
their
right.
association experiments.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you see, this is simply practical, because there are certain people who definitely are more influenced by their surroundings than by their own intentions. While there are other people who are more influenced by the subjective factor. Now you see, the subjective factor, that's very characteristic, was understood by Freud as a sort of pathological autoerotism.
Yes, yes.
Now this is a mistake. You know, we have, the psyche has two important conditions. The one is the environmental influence,
Yes.
and the other is the given fact of the psyche as it is born. The psyche is by no means tabula rasa. We are a definite mixture and combination of genes.
Yes.
And they are there from the very first moment of our life. And they give a definite character, even to the little child. And that is a subjective factor, looked at from the outside. Now, if you look at it from the inside,
Yes.
then it is just so as if you would observe the world.
Yes.
When you observe the world, you see people, you see houses, you see the sky, you see tangible objects. But when you observe yourself within, you see moving images,
Yes.
a world of images,
Yes.
generally known as fantasies.
Fantasy.
Yet these fantasies are facts. You see, it is a fact that a man has such and such a fantasy. And it is such a tangible fact, for instance, that when a man has a certain fantasy, another man may lose his life.
Yes.
Or a bridge is built.
Yes.
These houses were all fantasies.
Yes.
Everything you do here, all
That's
apparatus, everything was fantasy to begin with. And fantasy has a proper reality. That is not to be forgotten. Fantasy is not nothing. It is of course not a tangible object, but it is a fact nevertheless. It is, say, a form of energy.
Yes.
Despite the fact we can't measure it.
Yes.
It is a manifestation of something.
Yes.
And that is a reality. That is just a reality as, for instance, the peace treaty of Versailles or something like that.
Yes.
It is no more. You can't show it.
Yes.
But it has been a fact.
Yes. Yes.
And so the psychical events are facts, are realities. And when you observe the stream of images within, you observe an aspect of the world.
Yes.
Of the world within. Because the psyche, you know, if you understand it as a phenomenon that takes place in so-called living bodies, then it is a quality of matter. As our body consists of matter, we discover that this matter has another aspect, namely a psychic aspect.
Yes. Yes.
And so it is simply the world from within, seen from within.
Yes.
It is just as if we were seeing into another aspect of matter.
Yes.
This is an idea that is not my invention. The old Democritus already said, talked of the spiritus insertus atomis,
Yes.
namely the spirit that is inserted in atoms.
Yes. Yes.
That means psyche is a quality that appears in matter. Doesn't matter whether we understand it or not,
Yes.
but this is the conclusion we come to if we draw conclusions without prejudices.
Yes.
And so, you see, the man who is going by the external world, by the influences of the external world, say society or perceptions, sense perceptions, thinks that he is more valid, you know, because this is valid, this is real. And the man who goes by the subjective factor is not valid because subjective factor is nothing.
Yeah.
No, that man is just as well based, because he is bases himself upon the world from within.
Yeah.
And so he is quite right, even if he says, oh, there is nothing but my fantasy, you know.
Yeah.
And of course that is the introvert. And that's the introvert is always afraid of the external world. He will tell you, when you ask him, he will be apologetic about it.
Yeah.
He will say, of course, yes, I know only my fantasies. And he has always a resentment. And as the world in general, particularly America, is extroverted like hell, the introvert has no place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he doesn't know that he beholds the world from within.
Yeah.
And that gives him dignity, and that gives him certainty, because it is nowadays particularly the world hangs on a thin thread,
Yeah.
and that is the psyche of man. Assume that certain fellows in Moscow lose their nerve or their common sense for a bit, and the whole world is in fire and flames.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see? It is nowadays we are not threatened by elementary catastrophes. There is no such thing as an H-bomb. That is all man's doing.
Yeah.
We are the great danger. The psyche is the great danger. What if something goes wrong with the psyche?
Yeah.
You see? And so you see, it is demonstrated to us in our days what the power of the psyche is of man. How important it is to know something about it, but we know nothing about it. Nobody would give credit to the idea that the psychical processes of the ordinary man have any importance whatever. One thinks, oh, he has just what he has in his head. It is all from his surrounding. He's taught such a thing, believes such a thing. And particularly if he's well housed and well fed, then he has no idea at all. And that's the great mistake. Because he is just that as which he is born, and he is not born as tabula rasa, but as a reality.
Yes. Now, of course, one of the very common, I think, misconceptions of your work among some of the writers in America has been that they have sort of characterized your discussions of introversion and extroversion as suggesting that the world was made up of only two kinds of people, introverts on one hand and extroverts on the other. And I'm sure you've been aware of, in many of our people looking at things this way. And of course, would you like to comment about that? In other words, would you perceive the world being made up of only people or extreme introverts, people that are extreme extroverts?
Well, Bismarck once said, God may protect me against my friends. With my enemies, I can deal myself alone. You know, we know how people are. They catch a word, and then everything is schematized along that word. There is no such thing as a pure extrovert or a pure introvert. Yes. Such a man would be in the lunatic asylum. Those are only terms to designate a certain penchant, a certain tendency. For instance, the tendency to be more influenced by environmental influences or more influenced by the subjective factor. That's all.
Yes.
And you see, there are people who are very well balanced and are just as much influenced from within as they are from without,
yes.
or just as little.
Yes.
And so with all the finer classifications, you know, yes. they are only sort of point de repère, points for orientation.
Certainly then, this whole matter of extremes, introversion and extroversion, as you say, it's sort of a schematic approach to sort of hang an idea on, an approach.
Yeah.
But it would be, as you say, ridiculous to say
you
that
see,
people...
my whole scheme of typology is merely a sort of orientation. Namely, there is such a factor as introversion, there is such a factor as extroversion. The classification of individuals means nothing at all. This is only the instrumentarium,
yes.
for the practical psychologists, yes. To explain, for instance, a husband to a wife, or vice versa. For instance, it is very often the case, one could almost say, it is almost a rule, but I don't want to make too many rules, you see, in order not to be schematic,
yeah.
That an introvert marries an extrovert for compensation, or another type marries the counter type to complement himself, for instance.
Well, Dr. Jung, of course, tied in with your typology and quotation marks of introversion and extroversion, we, of course, know of your concepts of thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And, of course, it would be very interesting to hear some expansion of the meaning of these particular terms as related to the introvert-extrovert dichotomy.
Well, there is quite a simple explanation of these terms, and it shows at the same time how I arrived at such a typology. Namely, sensation tells you that there is something. Thinking, roughly speaking, tells you what it is. Feeling tells you whether it is agreeable or not, to be accepted or not, accepted or rejected.
Yes.
And intuition, now there is a difficulty.
Yes.
You don't know ordinarily how intuition works. So when a man has a hunch, you can't tell exactly how he got at that hunch or where that hunch comes from. It is something funny about intuition. I will tell you a little story. I had two patients the man was a sensation type, and the woman was an intuitive type. Of course, they felt attraction. And so they took a little boat and went out to the Lake of Zurich. And there were those birds that dive after fish, you know.
Yeah.
And then after a certain time they come up again, and you can't tell where they come up. And so they began to bet who was the first to see the bird. Now, you would think that the one who observes reality very carefully, the sensation type, would of course win out.
Yeah.
Not at all. The woman won the bet completely.
Yeah.
She was beating him on all points.
Yeah.
Because by intuition she knew it before.
I see.
See? Now, how is that possible?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, you know, you can really find out how it works by finding the intermediate links. You see, it is a perception by intermediate links, and you only get the result of that whole chain of associations.
Yeah.
Sometimes you succeed in finding out, but more often you don't. So my definition is, intuition is a perception by ways or means of the unconscious.
Yes.
That is as near as I can get. Now this is a very important function, because when you live under primitive conditions, a lot of unpredictable things are likely to happen.
Yes.
And there you need your intuition, because you cannot possibly tell by your perceptions, by your sense perceptions, what there is going to happen. For instance, you are traveling in primeval forest. You only see for a few steps ahead. Mm-hmm. You go by the compass, perhaps, and you don't know what there is ahead. It is uncharted country. If you use your intuition, then you have hunches. And when you live under such primitive conditions, you instantly are aware of hunches. For instance, there are places that are favorable, there are places that are not favorable. You can't tell for your life what it is.
Yes.
But you better follow these hunches.
Yes.
Because anything can happen. You see, quite unforeseen things. For instance, at the end of a long day, you approach a river, and you don't know that there is a river. Yet, when you come to the river, that is quite unexpected. For miles there is no human habitation. You cannot swim across. It's all full of crocodiles. So what? You see? Now, such an obstacle hasn't been foreseen. But it may be that you have had a hunch, that you remained in the last likely spot, and that you wait for the following day, that you can build a raft or something of the sort, or look out for possibilities. For instance, you also can have intuitions that constantly happens in our jungle called a city.
Yeah.
You can have a hunch something is going wrong, particularly when you are driving an automobile.
Yeah.
For instance, it is a day where nurses appear in the street.
Yeah.
And they always try to get something interesting like a suicide, you know, to be run over. That's what marvelous, apparently.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get a peculiar feeling. And really, at the next corner already is a second nurse that runs in front of the automobile.
Yeah.
You see? Duplicity of cases, you know, that is a rule, you know, that such chance happenings come in groups.
Yeah.
And so you see, we have constantly warnings, hints that consists perhaps in a slight feeling of uneasiness, uncertainty, fear. Now, under primitive circumstances, you pay attention to these things. They mean something. With us in our man-made, absolutely, apparently safe conditions, we don't need that function so very much.
Yes.
Yet we still use it. So you find intuitive types, for instance, amongst bankers, Wall Street men.
Yes.
They follow hunches, you know, gamblers of all descriptions.
Yes.
You find the type very frequently among doctors, because it helps them in their prognosis. Sometimes a case can look quite normal, as it were, and you don't foresee any complications. Yet, an inner voice tells you, now look out, here is something not quite all right, you know.
Yes.
You cannot tell why and how, but we have a lot of subliminal perceptions, you know, sense perceptions. And from those, we probably draw a good deal of our intuitions. But that is perception by the way of the unconscious.
Yeah.
And you can observe that with intuitive types. You see, intuitive types very often do not perceive by their eyes or by their ears. They perceive by intuition. For instance, once it happened that I had a woman patient in the morning at 9 o'clock. And you see, I often smoke my pipe, and there's a certain smell of tobacco in the room, or a cigar. And so she came and said, but you begin early. I said, you call it early at 9 o'clock? She said, no, you must have seen somebody at 8 o'clock. I said, how do you know? There had been a man there that had come at 8 o'clock already. Then she said, oh, well, I just a hunch. There must have been a gentleman with you this morning. I said, but how do you know it was a gentleman? He said, oh, well, I just had the impression, the atmosphere was just like a gentleman here.
Yeah.
All the time, you know, the ashtray was under her nose, and there was a half-smoked cigar.
Yes.
But she wouldn't notice it.
Yeah.
So you see, the intuitive is the type that doesn't see the stumbling block before his feet, but he's had for 10 miles.
Yes. You make a distinction between an intuitive extrovert and an intuitive introvert.
Yes. All these types can be on the extrovert or introverted line.
For example, more specifically, what would be an example or a difference between an intuitive extrovert and an intuitive introvert?